Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere most history classes never dare to touch. Straight into the narrow back rooms of a Victorian-era brothel. That's right, you're not a duchess or a governess or even an unlucky housemaid. Nope, tonight, you are Mary, and you've just woken up in 1857 London. The ceiling's water-stained, the fire's dead cold, and that musty smell? Yeah, that's your life now. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'm always curious, where in the world are you tuning in from? And what time is it there? Drop a comment. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're lying in bed. A narrow bed. The mattress is lumpy horsehair, the kind that never quite forgets your shape or your roommates. Your thin wool blanket is scratchy but familiar, and the flat pillow has clearly lost the will to puff. It's early, around 5 or 6 in the morning. London's still blue-gray with fog, but the city's been up for hours without you. You can already hear the carts rattling and the horses clopping and someone shouting about fresh rolls 4 streets away. London doesn't really care if you had a rough night. You sit up slowly, like someone who's been hit by a cart, but politely ask the cart to stop first. Your feet touch the cold wooden floor and you shiver instantly. There's no central heating here. Heck, there's barely heating. You reach for the shawl you left at the foot of the bed last night, wrap it around your shoulders, and thank past you for not leaving it downstairs. Your room is one of 5 on the top floor of a narrow house just off Haymarket. The wallpaper's peeling in the corners, and the one painting on the wall, a faded pastoral scene with a suspiciously cheerful cow, has been hanging crooked since before you got here. You'd fix it, but it feels honest like that. Your roommate, Lily, is still asleep in the bed across the room. She's younger than you, newer to the house. Her red curls fan across the pillow, her mouth opens slightly, and you think, not unkindly, that she looks like a dreaming cherub with the world's worst hangover. She'll wake soon. For now, you move slowly, quietly, because this hour is precious. It's your hour. Before makeup, before men, before Mrs. Cartwright starts barking schedules. This is yours. You glance out the window. The glass is fogged from your breath and the chill outside. Below, a cat stalks along a fence, tail twitching. A chimney sweep's boy is already on the rooftop 2 buildings over, soot-smudged and much too small for the job. You hear church bell strike 6. Time to move. You shuffle to the washstand. A small, chipped ceramic basin sits on top, with a pitcher of water beside it. You dip a finger in and wince. Thin ice across the top. Classic London winter. You break the ice, splash your face, and instantly regret your life choices. Still, you're more awake now. That'll do. The water smells faintly of metal and soap, and as it drips down your neck, you remember something important. The beeswax. You reach for the little tin on your nightstand and warm the lump between your fingers before smoothing it over your chapped lips. One of Mrs. Cartwright's many rules. Keep your lips soft. No one pays for crack kisses. This is your life, and strange as it sounds, it's not the worst one you've ever lived. You're warm. Sort of. You're fed. Mostly. And unlike your seamstress days, you actually sleep indoors. Historians still argue whether brothel workers in mid-Victorian London lived marginally better lives than other working-class women, or just different ones. You stretch your arms above your head, your back popping in a series of tiny protests. That's better. You roll your shoulders and listen as the house begins to wake. Heavy footsteps overhead. Mrs. Winters, the housekeeper, already making her morning rounds like some Victorian drill sergeant. There's the clink of coal being added to the parlor fire. The quiet grumble of someone descending the stairs. Probably Betsy, the housemaid. Only 13, still too young for the main business. She mostly cleans, fetches, and sleeps in the kitchen next to the pantry. Downstairs, you know the parlor fire will be lit. The red velvet settee will still be empty, the brandy untouched. But that space, that little room where men sip sherry and pretend they're not about to pay for affection, that's where you'll be spending your afternoon. Maybe your evening too. Depends on how many messages came in overnight. You pull your shawl tighter and look at Lily again. Still asleep. She murmurs something, turns over. You envy her for a moment. That kind of sleep that comes before the job wears down your dreams. You're only 24, but sometimes your joints sound 50. You glance back at the painting, the happy cow in the crooked field. Still smiling, you mutter. Maybe she knows something you don't. Or maybe she's just part of the furniture like you are. You reach for your stockings next, fumbling in the dim light. You'll dress properly after breakfast. Right now, you just want to get warm. Maybe grab the seat nearest the fire. But first, you look around your room, at the small wardrobe, the dented basin, the shawl still curled on Lily's chair. It's not much, but it's yours. For now. And just like that, your day begins. You remember the turning point clearly, clearer, maybe, than your own birthday. It was winter 3 years ago. The kind of winter that made your bones feel like glass, like they might snap just from breathing too deep. You were still a seamstress then, or more accurately, an apprentice trying to become one, working 12 to 16 hours a day in a dim, cold attic near Clerkenwell. Your hands were raw from the cold, fingers cracked and bleeding, not just from the weather, but from the relentless stab of the needle. Every stitch was pain. Your eyes blurred constantly from squinting in bad light. Sometimes you'd cry from frustration, but only when you were alone. Tears wasted salt and energy. And food, 2 stale rolls over 3 days. Water when you could get it clean. Forget tea. The rent on your tiny attic room was overdue. Again, you were behind 2 shillings, and the landlord had made it clear that he'd be evicting you at week's end if things didn't change. You remember the room as much as the desperation. Sloped ceiling, 1 cracked window, and an entire wall that smelled permanently of boiled cabbage. You had a blanket with more holes than thread. That day, you were trying to finish a commission. Hand-sewn collar cuffs for a merchant's wife who would, without a thought, throw them in a drawer and forget them. The linen was white, blinding white, and your numb fingers kept slipping, pricking your skin. Tiny dots of blood bloomed on the fabric like damning flowers. You scrubbed at them with spit and shame. It didn't help. Then came a knock. You almost didn't answer it. You were too hungry to care about anything except maybe falling asleep forever. But the knock kept coming. Relentless. Rhythmic. You opened the door, and there she was. Jane. She'd worked with you once in the seamstress shop. Nimble fingers, crooked smile, always whistling. You hadn't seen her in nearly a year. She looked different. Better. Her cheeks had color. Her eyes were bright. And she was wearing a proper wool dress. It wasn't upper-class fashionable, but it was clean and warm and fully lined. Luxury, basically. I brought you something, she said, and held out a paper parcel. Inside, a meat pie, still warm. You stared at it like it was made of gold. She sat with you while you devoured it, trying not to weep into the crust. When you finished, you felt more alive and more ashamed than you had in months. I'm working a house off Haymarket now, she said. A brothel. You choked on the last bite. You mean you're... She raised 1 eyebrow. Yes, that. But it's not what you think. The madam's strict but fair. We get 2 meals a day, a clean bed, weekly medical checks. No cruelty. No funny business. You stared at her like she'd just offered you passage to the moon. You'd make in a night what you make in a week here, Mary, she added, voice low, eyes steady. And you wouldn't be killing yourself with that. She pointed at the bloody needle in your hand. You didn't say yes. Not then. Not out loud. But the seed was planted. It took root later that night, when your stomach twisted again and you pressed your body against the wall to try and leach warmth from the bricks. A week later, you were evicted. 2 days after that, you showed up on Mrs. Cartwright's doorstep, half-starved and shaking, wearing your 1 decent dress and trying to look like something other than what you were, desperate. She gave you a look that measured everything. Height, weight, teeth, skin. Then she nodded. We'll try you for a week, she said. If you're polite, clean, and know how to behave, you can stay. That was 2 years ago. Historians still argue whether most brothel workers chose the work voluntarily or were pushed into it by systemic poverty. For you, the answer is simple. Starvation isn't noble. It's just slow. Now, back in the present, you hear Lily stirring across the room. Her breathing changes. One eye opens, then closes again. Morning, she mumbles. Still technically night, you reply, and she snorts softly. You pull your wool stockings over your legs, grateful they're mostly intact. No one wants to see holes in your hose. It spoils the illusion. Same with fingernails. Same with shoes. The illusion is important. Men aren't paying to see the reality of your life. They're paying to forget their own. Dreamt of the sea again, Lily says sleepily. It smelled like lemons. You smile. She's never seen the sea. Not once. Not even the murky coast near Southend. Brighton, you say, remembering the one time you saw it. It smells like fish and wet wool. Don't ruin it, she mutters, flipping her pillow over. Still, you understand. The sea is escape. It's not London. You finish dressing slowly. Petticoat, corset laced just enough to shape your waist without squeezing, in your plain work dress, dark blue and practical. Your boots are scuffed but solid. You wrap the shawl tight, listening to the familiar creak of the floorboards as the house comes alive below. You remember your first week here like it was a dream. Everything had felt sharp. Smells, sounds, even your own heartbeat. You flinched at every knock, every cough. But Jane was right. It wasn't what you expected. Sure, there were men, but there was also food, soap, privacy of a sort. And the other girls? They didn't mock you. They helped you, showed you which powders to use, which gentlemen to avoid, which chamber pot leaked. And now, 2 years later, you're the one who knows the house's rhythms. You're the one new girls quietly watch to see how things are done. It's not glamorous, not even close, but it's not starvation. And that's enough. You step out of the room, ready for whatever today throws your way. Well, mostly. The hallway is dim, the thin runner rug muffling your steps as you descend toward the parlor level. A soft creak from the stair rail reminds you not to lean too much. It wobbled once during a customer visit, and you nearly took him with you down the stairs. Dignified tumble that would have been. The air smells of smoke and lavender water. Not real lavender. Mind you, cheap, slightly sour stuff that tries its best and mostly fails. But it's what you've got. You breathe it in anyway, because it's comforting in its own off-brand way. Your boots click softly across the floorboards as you pass the closed doors of the other girls' rooms. You know them by their sounds. Emily hums when she brushes her hair. Sarah clinks her rings against the water basin. Josephine mutters to herself, always rehearsing something in her head. Probably what she'll say to the next client who asks if she's new here. You reach the landing outside the small kitchen and immediately feel the shift in temperature. Warmer. Thank God. The fire's been lit in the iron stove, and the scent of real coffee, not roasted chicory, wraps around you like a promise. Another small miracle of this house. Mrs. Cartwright insists on decent coffee. Claims it makes men more agreeable and girls less likely to bite someone before noon. Morning, Miss Mary, chirps Betsy. She's got the jug of hot water in her arms, her cheeks pink from hauling it up the stairs. At 13, she's too young to be involved in the work, and Cartwright keeps it that way. She's like a house sprite, always around, always helping, always somehow covered in flour or coal dust. Cook says there's porridge with treacle. You nod, and she hands over the water with a small curtsy before disappearing again, already halfway to her next task. You pour it into the basin back upstairs. It steams gently, and you let your fingers hover over it for a moment. Warmth like that isn't something you rush. You roll up your sleeves and begin to wash face, neck, underarms. A quick dip lower, just enough to feel clean, not enough to soak your nightdress. Bathing happens on Wednesdays and Sundays, but the daily ritual keeps you human, or something like it. The soap is coarse but fragrant. The towel, well, it's clean, and you finish by combing your hair and pinning it into a loose twist. Later, you'll wear it differently, more artfully, with borrowed curls if needed. But this early, function beats fashion. One more check in the little mirror perched above the washstand. Your reflection isn't glamorous, but it's awake, elate, and definitely not shivering. Progress. Downstairs, the morning hubbub grows. Voices, footsteps, the occasional clatter of metal from the kitchen. The house has a sound, and like a river, it flows predictably if you listen long enough. You head down for breakfast, stomach already reminding you it's time. In the dining room, Really just an extension of the parlor with a few rearranged chairs. Cook has laid out a simple spread. Porridge, thick and golden, steaming in a dented pot. A basket of sliced bread, still warm. And a pitcher of that sacred elixir, coffee. You pour yourself a cup. Inhale. Bliss. It's strong enough to wake the dead, which, frankly, most of you resemble before breakfast. One sip in and the world regains its shape. A second, and you might even feel charitable. The girls filter in one by one, wrapped in shawls or with sleeves rolled up. Emily flops into a chair like she's been dragged by horses. Someone tell me it's Saturday. It's Wednesday, Sarah says without looking up, already halfway through her bread. Which means doctor's day. Groans. Everyone loves a good weekly health check, right? You ladle porridge into your bowl and drizzle treacle on top. Sweet, slightly sticky. Perfect. As you eat, the chatter grows. Lily arrives, yawning. Josephine brings in apple she's saved from last night's supper. Someone jokes about the butcher's assistant slipping on a cabbage leaf again. You laugh. It feels good. Historians agree that Victorian brothels weren't always pits of despair. The ones like this, well-managed, decently provisioned, and selective about clients, offered something rare for working women. Relative safety, steady food, and shared camaraderie. You sip your coffee, catching a bit of the gossip. Sarah thinks Mrs. Cartwright's new dress is dyed with Prussian blue. It stains if you touch it too long. I saw a patch on the sleeve of Mr. Harrington's coat after she brushed past him. She says, deadpan. He looked like he'd been attacked by a moth. The table laughs. Then someone mentions that the coal delivery is late again, and Betsy mutters something about the delivery boy's terrible legs. You all pretend not to hear that one. The meal wraps slowly. No one's in a rush. Mornings are precious here. A bubble of calm before the appointments and rouge and endless polite giggles. You all linger longer than necessary, sipping lukewarm coffee and poking at your porridge bowls even when they're empty. Eventually, Mrs. Winters appears, keyring jangling ominously, face pinched in that way that means things are about to be assigned. Lily, linens. Emily, lamps. Sarah, accounts with Mrs. Cartwright. Mary, parlor dusting and bar polish. You nod. Parlor duty isn't bad. It's warm, and you get to eavesdrop on front door conversations. Plus, polishing glasses is soothing. Something about the circular motion and quiet shine makes you feel like you're fixing something, even if it's just smudged crystal. As everyone scatters, you gather your shawl and begin the transition into the next phase of the day. Body clean, belly full, coffee consumed. You're not exactly thrilled, but you're definitely functioning. One last look at the mantel clock. Still early. Still time before the real performance begins. But you know it's coming, and you're ready to start layering on the illusion. Oh, word count, 1097. You make your way to the parlor, cloth in hand, ready to begin your assigned chores. The morning light filters weakly through the window, painting soft rectangles across the worn rug. The room smells like last night, brandy, perfume, and just the faintest trace of disappointment. You open the curtains a little wider, letting in more of that fog-diffused sunshine, London's idea of a good mood. The parlor's velvet furniture is worn, but still looks expensive to someone who's never seen better. Deep red upholstery, buttoned back chairs, and a faintly ridiculous marble top table that once belonged to a gentleman of means, according to Mrs. Cartwright. She says that about every piece in here. Either she bought them all from the same dead man, or gentleman of means is code for fell down drunk and pawned his dining room. You start with the mantel, moving the feather duster in long, practiced sweeps. A pair of porcelain shepherdesses stare back at you, one holding a lute, the other a suspiciously cheerful lamb. Their painted smiles never fade. You sometimes envy them. As you dust, the street outside hums with activity. Newspaper boys, cab drivers shouting, a woman hawking roasted chestnuts from a cart. Ordinary city life, and all of it happening just beyond the glass. One of the strange ironies of this work. You live in the center of everything, yet feel invisible, like a shadow moving behind the curtain of London's respectability. You kneel to clean the lower shelves of the bar cabinet, rubbing each glass until it squeaks. These are the sherry and brandy glasses. Delicate, slightly mismatched, always in demand. You take your time, breathing slowly as you polish, finding the rhythm of cloth in motion. There's something meditative about it. Round and round, like the rest of your life. From the hallway, you hear Mrs. Cartwright's voice, cool, clipped, effortlessly in charge. She's speaking with someone at the door, likely the coal man. She's getting shorted lately, and she's not one to let that slide. She can make a copper cry, Lily once whispered, and she wasn't wrong. Mrs. Cartwright has run this house for over a decade. Former working girl herself, they say, though she never confirms it. She dresses like a widow who's inherited well and smiles like a cat that remembers being a lion. Historians still argue whether madams were empowered businesswomen or enablers of exploitation. With Mrs. Cartwright, it's both. She protects you, feeds you, gives you rules and structure. But she profits from you too. The duality is baked into the job. You finish with the bar and step back, admiring the shine. Not bad. If someone squints, it almost looks posh. You fluff the pillows next, straighten the rug, and adjust the glass dish of sugared almonds that no one ever eats. Presentation matters. Fantasy needs the right set dressing. Sarah passes through on her way to the office, ledger tucked under one arm. Accounts day, she mutters with a grimace. I'd rather scrub chamber pots. As for a raise, you joke. She snorts and ruin the illusion of selfless devotion. You laugh, then return to the hearth, stacking the kindling, just so. Even the fire is curated here. Flames must look welcoming, not threatening. You use your fingertips to turn the poker, just slightly. There. Perfect. Suddenly there's a sharp rapping from the ceiling above. 2 knocks, then a pause, then one more. The signal from Mrs. Winters. Doctor's arrived. You stand up straight, brush a fleck of dust from your skirt, and mentally prepare yourself. The weekly health check waits for no woman, no matter how many glasses you've polished. But before you leave the parlor, you pause at the small mirror above the mantel. A quick glance, just long enough to catch your own eyes. Not too tired. Hair tidy. Posture reasonable. You give yourself the smallest nod. It's a private ritual. A moment of recognition. You're still here. Still whole. On your way back through the hall, you pass Betsy mopping the entrance tiles, her small frame hunched, brow furrowed with concentration. You offer her a smile. She looks up, beams back. She idolizes you girls. You sometimes wonder what dreams fill her head, what she thinks your life actually is. She'll find out soon enough. They always do. Back upstairs, you cross paths with Josephine leaving the doctor's room. Her face is pale, lips pressed into a line. You all right? You ask gently. She nods once tight. Cartwright's putting me on rest. Just a cough, she says. You know that cough. It's the same one that took Molly out of the house last spring. She never came back. Some say she married a client. Some say she's in the hospital ward in Shoreditch. You hope it was the first, but you're not naive. You pause in the hallway as Josephine disappears into her room. A distant train whistle sounds through the city haze. The floorboards creak behind you, and you move again, returning to your own room to prepare for your turn. But as you walk, the polished bar, the sugared almonds, and the fire you laid flicker in your memory. All the small tasks done to uphold something bigger than you. This house, for all its roughness, is your stage. And the next act is already calling. The smell of vinegar and lemon oil clings to your fingers as you step back into the parlor to finish tidying. You still have an hour or two before the first potential caller might arrive, but you never want to be caught with a crooked cushion or a smudged mirror. Presentation is everything. In this house, it's not just a virtue. It's the first layer of armor. You place a fresh cloth over the side table, arrange the decanter and glasses just so. The room glows softly now, the fireplace crackling in the grate, its gentle pop and hiss filling the quiet. It's hard to believe this space will be filled with voices, perfume, and the heavy shuffle of men's shoes in just a few hours. And then there's the bell. Not the front doorbell. This one is internal. 2 sharp dings, a pause, and a third. The call from the hallway mirror. Mrs. Cartwright's code for, doctor's out, girls can breathe again, come downstairs for powder and prep. You glance at the clock. 12:47. Right on time. You pass Lily on the stairs. She's humming tunelessly, eyes a little glazed from whatever herbs Mrs. Winters gave her calm her nerves after the checkup. "You're next for rouge, love," she whispers. "Better hurry before Emily uses it all, try to hide her freckles again." You smirk, continuing past her, and make your way to the powder room on the ground floor. It's not grand, really just a small sitting room converted into a vanity space, but hold the tools of the trade: brushes, pens, powders, creams, and the sort of dangerous little pots that promise to make your eyes look wide and inviting, not hollow from poor sleep and cheaper meat. You take your seat at the table. The mirror is tall, ringed in little bulbs that don't quite light evenly. Your reflection stares back at you, pale and thoughtful. You begin the ritual. First, rose water, dabbed across the cheeks to wake the skin. Then a bit of light powder to blur the edges of reality. Because men don't want to see pores. They want porcelain. A dot of beeswax again for the lips, tinted faintly red. Not too red. Not like a common girl in an alley. You aim for just enough to look like you've been laughing at a very good joke, possibly in Italian. Historians still argue whether Victorian makeup was a sign of professionalism or degradation. What they don't talk about is how many of you sit here, carefully shaping your own version of power one brushstroke at a time. You lean forward and dab a hint of soot-mixed salve along the lashes. Then a touch of cold cream on the temples, just to soothe the tight skin. Your earrings, small, gold-plated, a gift from a former client, are the final touch. You fasten them and tilt your head side to side, checking the balance. Across the room, Emily struggles with a pin. Her hair refuses to stay up. "This blasted thing's got less hold than a drunk on payday," she mutters. You walk over and help her tuck the final strand in place. "There, you look like you own half of Mayfair." She grins. "Let's hope someone believes it." You return to your seat and let the rest of the prep happen around you. The room fills with quiet chatter, gentle laughter, occasional cursing. Powder clouds drift through the air. Pins fall. Someone sneezes violently, ruining her rouge and starting over with a groan. Then comes the moment you always forget is coming. The book. Mrs. Cartwright enters, ledger in hand, her voice crisp like morning frost. "Ladies," she says, and the room stills. "We've a new gentleman caller, Mr. Franklin, arriving in 1 hour." The girls glance at each other. You stay very still. She reads from the notes. Mid-30s. Banker. New to the house. Asks for someone elegant, witty, and discreet. She glances up. "Mary, that's you." There's a ripple of agreement. You suppress your sigh and nod once. This is the game. You're not the prettiest. Not with Emily's waist or Lily's curls. But you're known for putting clients at ease, for listening, for knowing when to speak, and when to just let the room breathe. Also, Mrs. Cartwright continues. "Mr. Jenner is back tonight. Booked for after supper. He requested Josephine." You catch Josephine's eye. She nods, unreadable. Mr. Jenner pays well, but he smells like tobacco and desperation. Not an easy hour. The assignments roll on. Girls match to men like gloves to hands. When Cartwright finishes, she snaps the book closed. Room's to be spotless. No perfume stronger than violet. And remember, we sell fantasy, not reality. Make it worth the coin. She leaves as suddenly as she arrived. You glance back at your reflection. Elegant, witty, and discreet. You practice a smile. Not too warm. Not too knowing. Somewhere between museum guide and woman who secretly owns a yacht. Betsy peeks her head into the room. "Parlor's ready, miss. Cleaned it just now." You thank her and follow her out, passing Lily in the hall who mouths good luck behind her teacup. Before entering the parlor, you stop by the hat rack and straighten a cushion. The room is lit now by afternoon light, its long shadows making everything feel more like theater. A play is about to start. You're not nervous. Not anymore. But there's always that moment before the bell rings where you feel your breath catch. Not fear, just awareness. You're slipping into costume, not with wigs and masks, but with posture and poise. You lower yourself into the armchair by the fireplace, ankle crossed over knee. One hand on the armrest, relaxed. The other cradling a book you aren't really reading. The setting is ready. The character is in place. Now you just wait for the gentleman to arrive. Your feet find the familiar rhythm of the stairs as you climb back to your room. Every step creaks in the same places. It's a song you've memorized, one floorboard at a time. You can hear the doctor speaking quietly with Mrs. Cartwright behind the closed sitting room door. His voice is low and professional, tinged with the kind of fatigue you only get from spending your days peering into the mouths, eyes, and private regrets of London's underpaid women. Inside your room, you remove your dress and hang it neatly. There's no point in wrinkling it further before the real part of the day begins. For the doctor, you don't need full regalia. Just your shift, a clean cloth, and the ability to breathe evenly when he listens to your chest. But before that, laundry. Because while the parlor may look refined, and your corset may whisper class, your underthings still need a proper scrub. Each girl is responsible for her own. No one's touching your drawers but you. Mrs. Cartwright says it keeps standards high and illnesses low. That, and no one wants to be blamed for someone else's unfortunate mystery stain. You gather your basket, full but manageable, and head down the back stair to the scullery. The scullery is the kingdom of cold stone and hot water. The windows open just a crack, letting in sharp winter air that prickles your arms even through your sleeves. The pump handle groans, and you fill the basin with water, your breath misting in the air. You add soap flakes and begin to scrub, deliberate practice strokes. Corset liners, shifts, stockings. It's not glamorous, but there's something almost satisfying about it. The suds turn gray, then clearer, as each item returns to something close to clean. Historians often gloss over this part of the job. They'll discuss wages and clientele, moral panic, and social reform, but rarely the muscle memory of washing linen while your fingers go red from the cold. Still, this is part of it. This is the work between the work. You hum as you go, some old folk tune your mother used to sing. Or maybe you just made it up. You can't remember anymore. The sound helps. It fills the scullery with something besides the slap of wet cloth and the hiss of cooling kettle water. Once finished, you carry the wet bundle out into the yard. A small slice of open sky behind the house, bordered by brick walls and shadow. There's a line strung between two posts, and you hang your pieces with wooden pegs, fingers stiff from the cold. The breeze catches the edges of the cloth, making them flutter like little ghosts. You pause, just for a moment. This is your moment of peace. The sky above is a dull silver, but there's light there. Honest light. No gas lamp flicker, no velvet curtain parlor. Just a sliver of something real. You tilt your head back and close your eyes. Breathe in. The air smells like coal smoke, yes, and wet brick, but also soap. Soap and freedom. Just a whiff. You hear the back door creak open behind you. Doctor's ready for you now, Lily calls gently. Then, after a pause, he's in a good mood. Barely poke me at all. You laugh softly and turn away from the washing line. Well, that's the dream. Inside, you towel off your hands and smooth your hair quickly. Mrs. Cartwright won't tolerate sloppiness, not even for a checkup. You pass Betsy in the hallway, carrying an armload of kindling. She nods at you, eyes wide, as though you're going off to war. The door to the sitting room is ajar. You knock once. "Come in, Mary," says Mrs. Cartwright from within. She sits in her corner chair, a ledger balanced on one knee, spectacles low on her nose. Dr. Harrison stands at the small desk, now covered with a clean cloth and his usual tools, a stethoscope, notebook, and several glass bottles. He's tall, graying, with a neat beard and hands that manage to be both clinical and, thankfully, gentle. "Miss Mary," he says with a faint smile. "How have you been this week?" "Well enough, sir," you reply. It's always the same. You answer, he nods, then you get on with it. The examination is efficient. He checks your eyes, your throat, listens to your heartbeat with the cold end of the stethoscope, asks if you've had any discomfort, any changes, any irregularities. Then comes the intimate part, quick, impersonal, professional. You've learned how to float your mind elsewhere during it. Today, it goes to the washing on the line, to the feeling of the cold breeze lifting your petticoats slightly, to that smell of soap and city grime mingling like uneasy roommates. And then it's done. All appears to be in order, he says, making a note in his book. Continue with your current regimen. Mrs. Cartwright gives you a tight nod. Thank you, Mary. Please send Sarah in next. You dress quietly in the hallway and take a moment to breathe. The scullery was cold. The doctor's hands were cold. But your body is warm now. Moving, functional, working. You descend the stairs once again, back toward the kitchen. The smells have shifted. Bread in the oven now, and stew starting on the stove. You hear the quiet clatter of Sarah preparing, the jangle of Mrs. Winter's keys. You've already lived a full morning, and it's not even noon. In the kitchen, you pour yourself a cup of tea and sit by the stove. The warmth seeps into your legs and arms, wrapping around your ribs. You press the mug to your lips and let the heat linger there. And for now, in this moment, you're just a woman in a warm kitchen drinking tea. No doctor, no lace, no illusion. Just you. The clock ticks steadily. You hear the light clink of the decanter as Mrs. Winters adjusts the tray. Then, faintly from the front room, a creak of the door. There it is. The subtle, precise music of a client arriving. A few muffled words, and then footsteps cross the polished floor. The rhythm is always telling. Heavy-footed means nervous. Quick-stepping means entitled. This one, careful, slow, measured. A man weighing every breath. The parlor door opens. You rise, smooth your skirt, and offer your most practiced smile. The one that says hello, you're safe here, and no, I won't laugh at your terrible shoes. He steps inside. Mr. Franklin is exactly what you expected, and also completely not. Mid-30s, certainly. Banker, clearly. His coat is too fine to be otherwise. Black wool, tailored, nowhere on the cuffs. But his face is younger than it should be, with eyes that carry the kind of tired only spreadsheets and silent dinners can give you. He nods politely. Miss Mary, you extend your hand. You must be Mr. Franklin. Welcome. He takes it briefly. Warm palm, slightly damp. Nervous. Not enough to fumble, but enough to betray the truth. This is likely his first time. Would you like a drink? You ask, gesturing to the sherry. He hesitates. Yes, but just a small one. I thought I should try to relax. You pour precisely. The glass catches the light, gleams amber. He sits across from you in the chair, opposite the fire, one hand gripping his knee, the other barely touching the glass. You begin with pleasantries. Weather, the fog, his journey, light, easy conversation. You let him talk without pressure, guiding him with questions that feel natural, never forced. He loosens by degrees, like someone stepping into a warm bath one toe at a time. Eventually, he admits, I wasn't sure I'd actually come in. Oh, you sip your sherry, careful not to smile too knowingly. I walked past this house 5 or 6 times, he says. Last week I stood across the street for 20 minutes. You tilt your head. That long? Anyone watching might think you were casing the place. That gets a laugh. A real one. Short but genuine. Good. That's the goal. You listen as he talks about his job. Accounts, balances, a senior partner who spits when he says S's. He speaks with quiet bitterness, but not cruelty. You can tell he wants to be more interesting than he feels. Here, that's part of your job too. To make them feel seen, not judged, not evaluated, just accepted, like a page in a familiar book. Historians still debate whether most Victorian clients came seeking sex, companionship, or simply escape. But you know the answer isn't singular. Mr. Franklin wants to forget his life just long enough to remember who he is without it. He asks, is this strange for you? Pretending, I mean. You shake your head gently. It's not pretend if we both know it is. That makes it something else. He nods slowly. That's oddly comforting. You move to the love seat, sit beside him, just close enough to share warmth, not so close as to alarm. The fire crackles. The glass in his hand warms. His breathing shifts. You don't rush anything. Instead, you ask him about his favorite book. He says Ivanhoe, then blushes and corrects himself. Actually, it's Gulliver's Travels, but that feels childish to admit. You smile. Not childish, just imaginative. His hand brushes yours. Not intentional. Not urgent. Just there. May I kiss you? He asks, and the question itself softens the air between you. You nod. It's gentle, more nervous than erotic. His lips tremble slightly. and you lean in enough to steady him. For all the talk about brothel work being transactional, there's something deeply human in these moments. Not love, no, but presence. The hour passes quietly. He does not undress. Neither do you. He lays his head against your shoulder for a time, eyes closed like someone waiting out a storm. You let him stay there. When it's time for him to leave, he stands slowly, as though stepping back into the world might break him. He reaches in his coat, offers you 2 sovereigns instead of 1. For your time, he says, voice hushed, and your kindness. You take it with a nod, no fuss, no modesty. Generosity doesn't need apology. He hesitates at the door. Would it be all right if I came back? You can, you reply, but only if you don't spend another 20 minutes across the street. Another small smile. Then he's gone. You sit for a moment, watching the glass and the firelight, listening to the ticking clock. The parlor is quiet again, still holding the weight of his presence, but already ready for the next guest. You rise and begin to reset. Tidy the cushions, refill the decanter, replace the sugared almonds, though no one ever eats them. You dampen a cloth and wipe the armrest where his hand lingered too long. You're not erasing him, not exactly, just clearing space for the next story. You return upstairs, passing Josephine in the hallway. How is he? She asks, lips pursed. You smile faintly, soft-spoken, smelled like vanilla and doubt. She laughs. My favorite combination. You head back to your room for a brief pause before supper. You take off your shoes, flex your feet. The fire in your hearth has gone out, but the warmth from the parlor still clings to your skin. Outside, it's beginning to rain. You listen to it against the window, light, steady, rhythmic. Another sound London gives you that isn't quite comfort, but comes close. You linger in your room just long enough to wriggle your toes out of your boots and press them against the cooler floorboards. The rain outside has picked up, the patter turning rhythmic, almost rehearsed. The kind of sound you could fall asleep to, if sleep weren't a luxury that waited until far later. Below, the house is still in motion. Voices drift upward, low and melodic. Somewhere, someone laughs too brightly, and through the floorboards, you hear the faint shuffle of footsteps, Betsy moving quickly, as always, doing a dozen things at once while trying not to disturb the show going on just above her head. There's a soft knock on your door. Mary. It's Sarah, her voice a gentle lilt. Is hey, the new one? You blink, momentarily unsure which new one she means. The writer, she adds. Mr. Wilson, booked for half an hour, says has never done this before. You nod and slip your boots back on, this time without the usual grace. Your feet protest, but they have no say in the matter. A fresh ribbon for your hair, a little more lip stain, and the character slides back into place. Down the hall, Josephine's door clicks shut behind her. She offers a wink in passing. If he's a writer, just keep asking him about himself. He'll never leave. You smile but say nothing. You've learned that every first-timer walks in thinking he's unlike the others. That he's different. That his awkwardness, his uncertainty, his little chuckle when he asks, how does this work? Exactly. Is somehow charming rather than utterly routine. The parlor is warm when you enter. The fire is still lively, flickering against the brass fixtures. Mr. Wilson stands by the window, staring out into the rain as though it's telling him something profound. He turns as you approach and smiles. He's younger than expected. Late 20s, perhaps. Too clean for a journalist. Probably writes for one of the illustrated papers. Those weekly rags full of serialized stories and drawn-out editorials about moral decay and the cost of fog. Miss Mary, he asks, voice high but pleasant. That's me, you reply with practiced brightness. And you must be Mr. Wilson. He looks embarrassed already. I wasn't sure how to do this. I mean, what's expected? You pour 2 glasses of brandy. Neat, not too full. Let's just talk, you say, handing him one. We'll figure the rest out later. He sits, stiff-backed, cradling the glass like it might scald him. I suppose you hear a lot of stories, he says after a pause. From people like me. Only the ones they think are interesting, you reply. That earns a grin. Then I'll try to be dull, for your sake. You laugh, and something in the air softens. He tells you he writes under a pen name, not for the content, he assures you, but because his mother reads everything and he'd rather not explain a satirical piece on Parliament's fondness for roast swan. You nod as though this is new information, though you've heard variations of it at least 17 times. Still, his energy is earnest, nervous, but not predatory. You let him talk, occasionally prompting him with simple questions. What's your favorite thing to write? Which story got you in trouble? What do you actually want to say that you haven't yet? That last one makes him pause, long enough for the fire to pop and the clock to click over another minute. I suppose, he says, eyes on the fire now. I want to write about what people don't say. The private parts of their lives. The quiet hours no one records. You nod, slowly. You'd be surprised. You say, how many people don't know what they are really feeling until they pay someone to sit still and listen? He looks at you then, not in a leering way, not assessing, but as if you've just solved something for him. You glance away before it gets awkward. The rain hammers a little harder against the window. You refill both your glasses, though you'll barely touch yours. It's all part of the rhythm, the sipping, the space, the ease. Eventually, he shifts closer, just a bit. The brandy's loosened his tongue, and now he wants to know about you. Always a dangerous shift. What made you come here? He asks. This house, I mean. You smile. The answer's too long, too personal, too boring, too complicated, and none of it is what he wants to hear. So you offer something easier. I came because I had a talent for conversation, and very little luck in other professions. He laughs again, not realizing that's not entirely a joke. The half hour begins to slip past. He never asks to undress, never reaches for you. You touch his hand lightly once, and he looks like he might dissolve. Instead, you lean in and ask him to read to you. The request surprises him, but he pulls a folded page from his coat pocket, like he'd hoped for this exact moment. The story is short, some parable about a locksmith's daughter and a cursed key. It's overcooked but charming. You listen closely, smiling where it helps, letting the words wash over you like music. Historians rarely note this, but many girls in houses like yours had favorite clients, those who paid not for the act, but for the hour, for poetry, for touch without tension, for the illusion of being adored and understood. When the clock strikes the half, he hesitates. I'm supposed to leave now, aren't I? You nod gently. Time's up, but you may finish your brandy. He does, in silence, then stands a little straighter now, like the rain outside is less of a threat. He pays without looking at the coins. 2 shillings and a florin, fair, and a bit extra. As he pulls on his gloves, he glances back. Do you think I could read you another sometime? If it's a good one, you reply, already moving to tidy the glasses. He leaves smiling, and as the door clicks shut behind him, you sit for a moment in the stillness. Not all men want to be touched. Some just want to be seen. You stretch your arms above your head and roll your neck gently, feeling each vertebra remind you that you've already been someone else twice today. It's not even dark yet. The lamps haven't been lit, but the sky is already graying, the way it does in London when the clouds decide time doesn't matter. Your next task is preparation. Not the powder and lip stain kind, the real one. The transformation, the full performance dress. You head upstairs to your shared room. Lily's not there. She's likely down with Cook, sneaking a piece of buttered bread or some overly salted stew. She says it keeps her grounded. You say it just gives her heartburn. Either way, the room is still, and for a moment, it's just you and the garments. You open the wardrobe. Inside, 3 dresses. You rotate between them like some slow-moving carousel of fabric and fantasy. You pull out the favorite, the dress. Deep burgundy, satin-lined, boned at the bodice, and trimmed with black velvet along the neckline. It fits you like a promise. When you wear it, you stop being a girl in a house and start being someone else entirely. Someone who could walk in a private club and make half the room forget they came with wives. You lay it out on the bed and begin. Corset first, not the tighter one. You're not trying to faint theatrically tonight. Just firm enough to sculpt. Then the petticoat, the bustle, the silk stockings. You do it all slowly, carefully, breathing deeply between layers. Historians still argue whether Victorian brothel women dressed better than their respectable counterparts or simply more flamboyantly. But they rarely note the craftsmanship involved. The stitching, the laundering, the expense of perfume and repair. You are both performer and wardrobe mistress, stylist and actor. You pin your hair into a new shape, softer, slightly curled with a heated iron. Lily's helped you with this before, wrapping strand around paper to keep the curl overnight. Tonight, though, you improvise, teasing and twisting until it frames your face in a way that says, I didn't try too hard. I'm just naturally stunning. A final look in the mirror. You lift your chin. There she is. Not Mary, who scrubs her drawers in the scullery and drinks tea with aching feet. No, this is Miss Margaret, your evening persona. Elegant, warm, with a voice like red wine and a gaze that could smooth wrinkles out of a linen napkin. Downstairs, the lamps are being lit. The hallway glows gold and soft amber. The scent of violet water drifts faintly through the air. Someone has already laid out the wine tray, with those mismatched glasses polished so finely they shimmer. As you pass the second landing, you catch sight of Emily whispering with Josephine in the hall mirror. They're practicing poses, tilting heads, arching eyebrows, testing smiles in glass. You don't interrupt. That part is sacred. It's where you decide who you'll be for the evening. In the parlor, Mrs. Cartwright waits. She gives you a once-over, then nods. Mr. Hamilton should be arriving any moment. Ah, yes. Mr. Hamilton. Wealthy. Soft-voiced. Smells faintly of bergamot and paper. Comes once every few weeks. Pays generously. Talks almost the entire time. I believe he brought a gift, Cartwright adds. Something from Harrods. You arch an eyebrow. Fancy. She allows the faintest smile. If it's another hat, we're setting it on fire. You wait in the drawing room while she opens the door herself. Always from Mr. Hamilton. Some men are allowed that illusion, that the house is a salon, not a business. His voice carries softly down the hallway. You hear him thank her, remove his gloves, offer a faint apology for the weather. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, polished boots on clean floors. He enters the room and stops when he sees you. Miss Margaret, he says with a small bow. You look even more radiant than last time. You should get your eyes checked, you reply with a smile. But thank you. He chuckles. May I sit? You gesture to the couch. Of course. And I believe you brought me something. He reaches into his coat and produces a small, tissue-wrapped bundle. Inside, a hair comb. Ivory, inlaid with tiny mother-of-pearl daisies. Real ones. Likely worth more than your entire week's pay. I saw it and thought of you, he says. You manage not to say what you're thinking. Was it the price tag or the floral motif? Instead, you touch it gently. It's beautiful. You're welcome to wear it now, or not, he says. I don't mean to presume. That's the thing about Mr. Hamilton. He doesn't presume. He asks, and you're paid well enough to make him believe he's the most interesting man in London. You pour the wine. He talks. About Parliament. About France. About some dinner party he escaped early. About a painting he saw. Turner, of course, always Turner. You listen, you laugh, you interject with clever questions. You refill his glass once, then yours, though you barely sip it. Some men want pleasure. Some want power. Mr. Hamilton wants attention. To be watched, to be listened to. You offer him both, like a polished mirror with warm breath. He finally leans back, looking at you. Do you ever get tired of pretending to care about our nonsense? He asks softly. You match his gaze. Only when it's boring. He laughs, full, unguarded. And have I bored you tonight? Not yet. You reply, and let the moment hang. You both know what this is. The exchange. The roles. The weight behind the smiles. But there's also a strange honesty in the performance. In pretending just well enough that it becomes something real for the hour. The night stretches softly. No rush. No drama. Eventually, the clock chimes. He finishes his wine, stands, offers you his hand. I'll send word for next week, he says. If you're available. I'm always available, you reply. Then correct yourself. For you, I mean. He tips his hat, and then he's gone. You stand there for a moment, the wine glass in your hand, the ivory comb still sitting on the table. The room smells of brandy, lavender, and the faintest trace of rainy wool coat. You walk to the mirror and pin the comb in your hair, just to see how it looks. Dinner is loud, not in the shouting, clattering cutlery kind of way, but in the alive way. The parlor girls gather at the long wooden table in the dining room, the one that rocks slightly if you lean your elbows on the left side. The gaslight flickers overhead, casting golden shadows on plates already half full with thick stew, slices of rye bread, and a suspiciously pale root vegetable you think might be turnip, or potato having an identity crisis. You take your usual seat between Josephine and Sarah. Across from you, Emily is already buttering her second slice of bread, holding it in mid-E while she tells a story about a gentleman who asked if she could tie his cravat for him mid-session. Just lean back on the settee, she says, rolling her eyes, chest puffed out like he was about to be knighted. Said, make it look dashing, darling. I've a reputation. Josephine snorts. You should have tied it around his knees and told him it was the French way. Laughter ripples down the table. You smile and dip your bread into your stew, the broth rich and peppery. Cook's not always consistent, but tonight she's done well. The meat is tender, the carrots soft but not mushy. You taste something earthy. Time maybe, or just a miracle. Mrs. Cartwright stands at the end of the table, plate in one hand, glass in the other. She's not eating, just overseeing, like a headmistress with a touch of silent admiration. Her expression never fully softens, but you've seen her laugh. Once, when Betsy tried to serve breakfast in lace gloves to feel fancy. Now, Cartwright clears her throat. Ladies, she says, all chatter fades. We've a heavy booking tonight. Club guests. A party of 4, all new to the house. Mr. Henley's recommendation. You hear a few quiet groans. Mr. Henley's friends have a reputation. Loud, perfumed, and clumsy with coin. They'll arrive by 10. I expect you all prepared. Room 5 has been set for overflow. Josephine, Emily, Sarah, and Mary, you on rotation. You glance at the others. No surprise there. Josephine straightens slightly. Sarah nods once, and Emily just keeps chewing. Eyebrows arch like someone being handed another chapter in a long novel. Lily, to your right, leans close and whispers, club guests always reek of cigars and smugness. You nudge her, and you always end up charming them anyway. She grins, brushing crumbs off her bodice. It's a gift. Cartwright finishes her glass. Remember, she says, they don't want to be impressed. They want to believe they're impressive. Your job is to help them along. She exits with the same silence she entered, keys jangling faintly at her hip. The room resumes its murmur. Spoons scrape, cups refill. The mood shifts, subtle, but noticeable. Everyone's recalibrating. Not fear, exactly. Not dread either. Just preparation. Historians often assume brothel workers simply waited in their rooms like mannequins until summoned. In truth, nights like this are half war council, half theater rehearsal. You finish your stew and help clear the table, giving Betsy a grateful nod when she whisks away your plate with her usual efficiency. Good luck, she whispers. One of them's wearing a green cravat. Looks like a frog. You suppress a laugh. Noted. Back upstairs. The house begins its transformation. Gaslights are toned low to a golden hue. Curtains drawn just enough to hint at privacy but not darkness. The parlor gets a second polish. Pillows plumped. Decanter refreshed. And you? You swap the burgundy dress for the dark green one. Lower neckline, tighter fit. Mrs. Cartwright's orders. Club men like their women festive. The dress has a rip in the hem, stitched hastily yesterday. You brush a thumb over it and sigh. Just let it last one more night. You reapply powder. Rouge, deeper this time. Perfume behind the ears. Jasmine water, stronger than usual. If you're going to endure cigars and bravado, you might as well smell like something heavenly while doing it. 10 minutes to 10. Josephine appears in the hallway in her red dress. Lips stained like berries. Eyes rimmed with kohl. Do I look patient? She asks. Like a nun, you reply. Perfect. You pass by the drawing room. Sarah's already in place, sipping tea with the delicacy of a duchess on a day. Emily joins her, arranging the cards on the table as if they've just paused a charming game of whist that happens nightly, instead of once every 4 months and usually with cheating. Then the knock. Low, confident. Then another. The front door opens. Voices, boisterous, laughing, slightly too loud for the space. You steel yourself. They enter like fog rolling off the Thames. Tall coats, slicked hair, the scent of gin and pomade thick in the air. One wears the frog green cravat. Another has a moustache so wide it needs its own chair. Good evening, gentlemen, Mrs. Cartwright says smoothly, guiding them in. Welcome to our little sanctuary. They smile, nod, puff up. One makes a bow too deep for his balance. You watch silently from the hallway arch, waiting for your cue. Mr. Frog Cravat catches sight of you first. Ah, who's this vision? You step forward, hand lightly outstretched. Miss Margaret, you say, voice velvet. But you can call me whatever suits your evening best. He beams like his just-invented charm. You catch Josephine's glance behind his back, eyes wide, mock faint. The men disperse, each latching onto a girl as easily as choosing pastries from a tray. Some chat, others pour drinks too quickly. One spills a few drops on the rug. You wince. That rug has survived more than this. But still, rude. You sit beside Frog Cravat, who introduces himself as Mr. Pritchard, man of the city, and within 10 minutes has told you about his horses, his tailor, and his favorite pub. In that order, you smile. You laugh in the right places. You lean just enough to encourage without committing. You even compliment the ridiculous cravat. Twice. This is the business. Historians still debate whether brothel women were passive recipients of male desire or active manipulators of social performance. But hey, right now, you know the truth. You're not here to be desired. You're here to direct desire. To craft the mood, manage the tempo, and exit each interaction with your dignity and your earnings intact. As the clock ticks past 11, you gently excuse yourself for a moment, retreating to the hallway for air. You press your fingers to your temples, breathe in deeply. The scent of jasmine still clings. Back in the parlor, the laughter swells again. You straighten your dress and re-enter the room. Show's not over yet. The parlor is a swirl of cigar smoke, laughter, and too many overlapping conversations. The warmth of the fire has turned from cozy to stifling. You can feel beads of sweat forming at the small of your back, right where your corset presses tightest. You shift in your chair, subtly adjusting the boning so it doesn't dig in quite so cruelly. Mr. Pritchard is still beside you, now mid-story about how he once accidentally bought 2 racehorses. You're not sure how anyone accidentally spends that kind of money, but you smile as though it's the most delightfully human mistake you've ever heard. He waves his hands wildly to mimic the horses, sloshing his brandy across the rim of his glass. Both of them turn out to be duds, naturally, he says. One refused to run without a companion. The other ran into a hedge. You laugh politely. They sound perfectly matched. Across the room, Emily is perched beside a round-faced man who's trying to impress her by naming all the members of the House of Commons. Every time he forgets one, he drinks. At this rate, he won't remember his own name soon. Sarah's on the rug by the fire with the youngest of the men, fair-haired, maybe 22 at best. He's gazing at her like she's something painted by the pre-Raphaelites, all tragic beauty and celestial lighting. She's spinning a story about her aunt in Brussels, completely fictional but laced with just enough detail to be convincing. You catch Josephine's eye from across the room. She raises her glass in a mock toast. You return it with a small bow of your head. No words exchanged, but the message is clear. We've got this under control. But underneath it all, the energy is shifting. Club nights are unpredictable. At first, the men are jubilant, full of stories, bravado, and misremembered Latin phrases. But as the hour creeps toward midnight, the mood thickens. Laughter turns into muttering. Flirtation into expectation. Mr. Pritchard leans a little too close now, his breath heavy with brandy. You're not like the others, he murmurs. They always say that. Oh, you reply, keeping your voice light. You've got something, he searches for the word. Like gravity. Makes a man want to talk about things he doesn't even like admitting to himself. He's quoting something you realize. Probably one of those penny novels full of dramatic lighting and wounded dukes. Still, you nod. Well, you say, I imagine that's better than pulling it out of him with force. He blinks, then laughs. You steer the conversation back to neutral territory. Music, the theater, even a bit of discussion about gaslighting being installed in more homes. You've learned to balance on this tightrope. Keep them engaged, not emboldened. Draw near without letting them believe too much. Historians still argue whether women, like you, manipulated your clients or were merely victims of their whims. You know better. You manage men like a captain steers a ship. Firm hand, calm voice, and a good eye on the storm coming over the horizon. But storms, of course, aren't always predictable. The round-faced man stands too quickly and knocks over his chair. The clatter draws everyone's attention. He laughs too loud. I think I need some fresh air. Mrs. Winters appears instantly, as if conjured. This way, sir, she says, guiding him gently to the hallway. That's the trick of a well-run house. Crises are managed so smoothly the clients don't even notice them as crises. The illusion remains intact. You excuse yourself from Mr. Pritchard for a moment and step out toward the kitchen. Not for any real errand, just a breath of cool, unscented air and a chance to ease the ache in your shoulders. Betsy is there, stoking the fire under the kettle. You all right? She asks quietly. You nod, just halfway through a long evening. She hands you a clean cloth. Wipe your brow. You're glowing like a gas lamp. You smile, dabbing gently. Thanks, love. Back in the parlor, things have shifted again. The men are slumping a little more into the furniture. The brandy's nearly gone. Emily is playing cards now, pretending not to notice how her partner keeps misplacing the rules. And then, from the staircase, the sound of boots. New ones. A fifth man appears. Late, unexpected, and very much not part of the original group. His coat is heavy with rain, his eyes scanning the room with too much awareness. You stiffen. Mrs. Cartwright appears like clockwork. May I help you, sir? He smiles, not unkindly. Mr. Henley sent me. Said you had room for one more. She studies him for half a breath. We're quite full this evening. He holds up a silver coin. Just for a drink, then. Cartwright glances at you. You nod slightly. He enters. He doesn't behave like the others. Doesn't joke or puff himself up. He takes a seat near the fire, orders a drink, and simply watches. Not lecherous, not judgmental, just attentive. You approach carefully, wine in hand. Evening, you say. Late arrival? I prefer quieter hours, he replies. Easier to see what's real. The hairs on your arms rise. You sit beside him, smile polite. And have you seen anything real here yet? He considers. I've seen a great deal of performance. But that's real too, in its own way. You study him. Older than you by at least 10 years. Hands clean, but not soft. Not a banker. Not a club boy. Something else. Are you here to observe or to participate? You ask softly. Depend on the story, he replies. Some stories need a witness. Others need a confession. You blink, unsure whether you're being interviewed or entertained. Either way, the night just got more interesting. He doesn't give a name. This late-arriving guest with a silver coin and a voice like a worn violin. No monogrammed handkerchief. No exaggerated tales of coin or horses. Just that quiet, steady presence. You sense immediately that he's different, though you've trained yourself not to trust that feeling. Too many men wear mystery like a waistcoat, meant to be admired, easily removed. Still, he watches you with a kind of patience. Not the predatory sort, not the salesman's charm, just presence. You've been here long? He asks, lifting his glass. Long enough, you reply, and sip your wine. The firelight dances on the rim. He nods, accepting the ambiguity. Seems well run. You glance around the parlor. The others are still playing their parts. Sarah's storytelling voice floats up like music. Josephine has switched to French with her gentleman, though you're fairly sure neither of them speaks it well. Lily's playing the piano softly in the back salon. One of her half-tunes that sounds like Chopin until it stubbornly turns into a folk song. You return your gaze to him. So what brings you here, if not the usual? He smiles slightly. Curiosity, I suppose. I write a bit. Ah, there it is. The cloak drops. A writer, you say, swirling your glass. That explains the staring. He laughs, the sound low and warm. Sorry, occupational hazard. Don't apologize, you say. Just tell me if I'm going to end up in one of your books. He leans back in a chair. Would you want to be? You pause. Let the question land. Depends how you write me. He looks at you then. Not just your face, but the way you sit, the way your hands hold the glass, the way your smile never quite reaches your eyes. I think I'd write you exactly as you are, he says softly. You raise an eyebrow. Dangerous choice. Maybe, but true. You're not sure if it's a line. If it is, it's an excellent one. But feels too calm, too measured. He's not trying to woo you. He's studying you, as if you're the one who walked into his world, not the other way around. Historians still argue whether brothel workers in the Victorian era were respected by artists and writers or merely used as convenient metaphors. You're fairly sure the answer, as always, is both. You've been a muse, a mirror, a cautionary tale, and none of those titles pay your rent. So, Mr. Writer, you say, what exactly are you hoping to find in a place like this? He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he watches the fire. A place where people speak plainly, even if they lie. You nod. You're in the right place for that. Outside, the rain has turned to a slow drizzle. The window panes glow softly, yellow from gaslight, edged in the smudge of passing carriage wheels. The city is still moving, still breathing. But inside this room, time folds in on itself. He shifts forward. May I ask you something? You nod. Do you enjoy this? The work, I mean. You smile, slow and deliberate. Some parts. The quiet before conversation. The dressing up. The pretending, sometimes. It's not the worst thing in the world to be paid to be seen. He watches you a beat longer than necessary. And the rest of it? You take a sip of wine. The rest? Depends on the day. Depends on the man. He accepts that. Doesn't press. Which makes you want to say more. There's a rhythm to it, you add. You learn what each man wants to hear. Some want flattery. Some want silence. Some just want to speak into a space that won't talk back. And what do you want? It catches you off guard. No one asks you that. You deflect lightly. An extra day off. Cleaner stockings. A slice of Cook's treacle tart that isn't already half eaten by Betsy. He smiles. Fair enough. But he doesn't press. Just lets the moment breathe. And for a while, neither of you speaks. The fire crackles. Footsteps pass in the hallway. The clock ticks. Then he stands. I should go. You blink. You're not staying? I've stayed exactly as long as I intended. He places a folded banknote on the side table. Not coin. Not ostentatious. Just enough to say this mattered. You didn't, you start, but he cuts you off gently. I didn't come to take anything, he says. But I can pay for your time. You rise with him. There's no embrace. No farewell kiss. Just a nod, like something has been shared, even if no one will name it. At the doorway, he pauses. If you ever write your own story, he says, don't let anyone edit the ending. You almost laugh. And what ending would you suggest? He smiles. One where you walk out the front door without looking back. And then he's gone. You stand there for a while, just breathing. The note still rests on the table, untouched. The room is exactly as it was, but also not. You sit again, slowly, feeling the cushion warm beneath you. From the hallway, Betsy peeks in. Need anything, Miss Mary? You shake your head. No, just the fire. Let it burn a little longer. She nods and disappears. You stare into the flames. For once, you're not performing. You're just you, and it's almost enough. You wake the next morning later than usual, not with the clatter of Betsy's boots or the creak of the third step on the main staircase. Instead, it's the hush that wakes you, a strange, rare quiet that settles over the house like a thick velvet curtain. For a moment, you lie there blinking at the ceiling, disoriented by the absence of clatter and gossip. No one shouting for hot water. No muffled coughs behind the walls. The gas lights are out. Even the fire in your hearth is cold. You rise, wrap a shawl around your shoulders, and peer out the window. Snow. Not heavy. Just a soft, unexpected dusting. The rooftops across the street are sugar-coated, the road below muted under a thin white sheet. London looks paused, like it's waiting for something. You take it as a sign. Today begins slowly. Downstairs, The kitchen is warm and bright. Cook's bustling between pots, her cheeks pink from stove heat and the joy of making porridge thick enough to stand spoon in. She hands you a bowl without a word. You nod your thanks and sit by the range. Sarah enters a few moments later, hair tousled, eyes puffy. "It snowed," she asks, peering out the window like she doesn't quite believe it. "Barely," you say, enough to keep the quiet in. She sits beside you, cradling her bowl. It's like the city's pretending to be kind for a day. You nod, eating slowly. The rest of the girls drift in over the hour. Lily with her stocking seems uneven. Emily humming something tuneless. Josephine looking paler than usual, her cough faint but ever present. Mrs. Winters appears briefly to hand out tonics. Thick, bitter syrup in small glass cups. You sip yours without protest. It helps, even if only as ritual. Later that morning, while sweeping the parlor, you find the ivory comb. You'd taken it out before sleep and left it on the table, thinking nothing of it. But in the soft morning light, it looks different, less extravagant, more personal. A gift not just from a client, but from a man who wanted to leave a mark. Historians still debate whether women like you kept client gifts out of sentiment or practicality. But the answer is usually both. A comb, a ring, a locket, each item is a little monument to a moment where someone tried to cross the boundary between transaction and connection. You set the comb on the mantel. Let it sit like an ornament. A reminder. Midday brings mail. A small bundle, tied with string, placed on the sideboard by Betsy with a shy glance. Most of it is for Mrs. Cartwright. Orders, invoices, a note from her sister in Dover written in an impatient hand. But there's one letter for you. No name. Just Miss M on the front. Inside, a note written in familiar, even strokes. "Thank you for your company. It reminded me of something I'd forgotten mattered." No signature. You fold the paper and place it inside your bodice pocket, close to your heart, because you're cliché like that. And because clichés are often comforting when you live a life that leaves little room for softness. The rest of the afternoon drifts by in that same gentle quiet. No clients booked before evening. The girls read, sew, or nap. You spend an hour mending the hem of her green dress by the fire, threading the needle with care, like each stitch is a kind of prayer. Josephine sits nearby, thumbing through a battered magazine. "Do you ever think about it?" she asks. You glance up. "What? Leaving?" You hold her gaze a moment, then return to your sewing. "Sometimes." She nods. "I think I'd open a bakery. Sell sweet things. Marry a widower with nice hands and a dog." You smile faintly. "A big dog or a little one?" "Medium," she says. "The kind that keeps your feet warm but doesn't steal food off the table." There's a pause. Not silence, just softness. Then she says, "I don't want to grow old in a house like this." You don't say anything, because neither do you. But you've also learned the trick of not looking too far ahead. It's like walking on ice. You focus on the step in front of you. Anything else is how you fall. Later, you're called back to the powder room. Tonight's guest is a known one. Mr. Randall. Quiet, punctual, always smelling faintly of ink and lemon. He brings newspaper clippings sometimes, tries to impress you with bits of political gossip. You reapply rouge, comb your hair, slip into the burgundy dress. It still fits like armor. As you prepare, Betsy appears in the doorway, holding a package. "From Mr. Franklin," she says, setting it gently on the table. "Said to give it only to you." You open it slowly. Inside, a book. Gulliver's Travels. Your heart gives a small, unexpected tug. There's a note tucked into the pages. I read it again. You were right. It's not childish, just imaginative. You stare at the note for a long time. Then you close the book and set it aside. The hour grows late. You straighten your posture, smooth the lines of your dress, and take one last glance in the mirror. Not to check your appearance, just to see if she's still there, the girl inside the girl. She is, and she's tired, but not broken. You walk to the door, shoulders back. Another guest awaits. Another performance begins. But something is different tonight. You're carrying fragments of kindness in your pocket. And sometimes that's enough. The night unfolds like paper, carefully, silently, one crease at a time. You sit in the red upholstered chair in room 3, waiting for Mr. Randall to arrive. The walls are freshly dusted. The gas lamp hisses gently overhead, and someone, probably Sarah, has left a vase of slightly wilted violets on the side table. Their scent is faint, but still sweet, like a memory just starting to fade. You don't have to wait long. Mr. Randall knocks once, then enters without needing permission. That's his rhythm. Polite, rehearsed, efficient. He's in his usual gray coat, his hair carefully combed, and his fingers ink-stained despite the gloves. A man of habit, a man who believes control is a virtue. Miss Margaret, he says with a small nod. Thank you for receiving me. Mr. Randall, you reply, rising to greet him. Always a pleasure. He removes his gloves slowly, folding them with the precision of a butler. Then he offers you a slim paper envelope. His usual. Inside, 2 sovereigns and a pressed sprig of lavender. You don't know where he gets the lavender in winter, and you've learned not to ask. You place the envelope on the mantel without opening it. Would you like to sit? You ask. He nods, lowers himself into the chair across from you, and lets out the faintest sigh. It's been a trying week. Tell me about it. You say, pouring tea from the small porcelain pot that Mrs. Winters brought up earlier. You add the sugar cube he likes and hand in the cup. He begins with Parliament, as always. A bill passed that shouldn't have, a colleague promoted who shouldn't have been. He speaks in clipped sentences, like he's reading from a telegraph. You nod, offer the occasional question, just enough to keep him going. And then, slowly he softens. It's the falseness of it, he says, setting his tea down. The smiles. The pretense. Everyone playing a role. You raise an eyebrow, says the man in a house of performers. He smiles faintly. At least here, the roles are acknowledged. He leans back, crosses one leg over the other, and studies you. Not lecherously, just thoughtfully. You're very good at what you do, he says. So are you, you reply. That's why you're tired. That earns a chuckle. Low and rare. He picks up his tea again. Historians still argue whether clients developed emotional bonds with women in houses, or whether it was all smoke and mirrors. You've lived long enough in this house to know the answer isn't binary. You can care about someone and still charge them by the hour. You can feel comforted by someone you barely know. Mr. Randall is no romantic, but he's lonely in a specific, rigid way. The loneliness of a man who has everything except permission to be honest. You offer that to him, not with declarations, not with confessions, just with presence. Eventually, he moves closer, not urgently, not hungrily, just like someone asking without asking. May I? He murmurs. You nod. He presses his forehead to your shoulder. You place your hand gently at the back of his neck, and you stay there. Neither of you speaks for 10 whole minutes. The gaslight hums. The violets wilt further. Your tea cools. But it's not about heat. It's about stillness. Eventually, he lifts his head. I should go. You help him with his coat, straightening the collar. He touches your hand briefly, just a brush of fingers. Thank you, he says, for letting me be human. You don't reply. You just hold the door as he exits. Back downstairs, the house has shifted again. The club guests are long gone. The fire in the parlor has been reduced to glowing coals. Josephine's at the piano, playing the same lullaby over and over. Sarah and Emily are curled together on the divan, their voices murmuring about something only they care to remember. You head to the kitchen quietly. Betsy is asleep on the stool, her cheek against a folded apron. You smile and tuck a blanket over her shoulders. Then you light the kettle. Cook, of course, left early. Her knees have been acting up again. But the kettle's always full, and you know where she hides the good tea leaves. You find them behind the tins of salt and dried beans. Chamomile and lemon peel, just strong enough to take the edge off. You pour the water, stir slowly, and carry your cup into the sitting room behind the parlor, a quiet, lesser-used corner where no one expects you to entertain. You sit in the armchair by the frosted window, watching your reflection blend with the view of the street beyond. The snow is mostly gone now, melted into slush and steam. But for a while it was clean. You sip the tea. Steam curls against your cheeks. You think about the people who've passed through this house. The ones who arrived nervous, angry, bruised by the world. The ones who left with combs and books and letters unwritten. You think about the roles you've played. Mary, Margaret, Mississippi Muse. You wonder what your real name sounds like when spoken by someone who knows you fully. Then you laugh, softly, because that's not how this story works. You hear footsteps behind you. It's Lily, barefoot, wrapped in a blanket. "Can't sleep," she murmurs. You pour her a cup and hand it over without a word. She sits beside you, curling her feet beneath her, and you watch the fog gather on the window as the city exhales outside. Two women, two cups, no makeup, no rolls, just breath and quiet. It doesn't last forever, but for tonight, it's enough. Dawn arrives like a secret being whispered through the cracks in the shutters. The world outside is wet and gray again. No more snow, just puddles and the distant groan of a cart on slick cobbles. Inside, the house is still and soft. No clients, no visitors, just the girls sleeping in tangled sheets and half-unbuttoned corsets, dreams clinging to them like the scent of violet water and ash. You are awake before the others, not fully dressed yet, still in your shift and woolen stockings, wrapped in a shawl that smells faintly of rose soap. You move quietly, stepping past creaky floorboards and breathing in the stillness. There's a peace to mornings like this, a kind of truce between who you have to be and who you actually are. You pad down the stairs and into the parlor. The embers are cold. The mirror is smudged with fingerprints. You resist the urge to clean. Let it be imperfect for a moment. Let it breathe. On the sideboard sits the book Mr. Franklin left, Gulliver's Travels. You hadn't meant to leave it there. You pick it up and hold it for a while, thumb brushing the worn edge of the cover. You consider reading. You consider running. And then you do neither. Instead, you sit by the window and watch London wake up. Milk carts. A boy on a bicycle. A dog trotting behind a gentleman in a bowler hat. It's the kind of morning that almost tricks you into thinking you're part of that world. The respectable, ordinary one where mornings begin with breakfast and not with memory. You hear Josephine's door open upstairs. A soft yawn. The thump of her shoes dropping to the floor. Then Sarah's voice, low, amused. "Do we have to be awake, or is this optional?" Emily groans. "Tell the sun to go back down." You smile, still watching the street. Eventually, you rise, book still in hand, and begin the slow process of waking the house. You light the lamps one by one, crack open a window, shake out the rug in the front hall. The girls appear gradually, bleary-eyed, hair undone, still beautiful in a way that's too real for evening clients. You all move with practiced rhythm, boiling water, setting tea, folding linens. It's almost domestic, almost ordinary. And then Mrs. Cartwright appears. She carries the ledger, always the ledger. The girls fall quiet. She stands at the head of the table, flipping through pages like a bishop preparing a sermon. "Bookings today," she begins. "2 appointments this afternoon. 1 returning gentleman, 1 inquiry. Tomorrow, a possible group from Liverpool, delayed due to weather. They've wired ahead." She doesn't look up. She doesn't need to. "We'll need clean rooms by noon. Fresh linen. Josephine, you're first for the bath." You all nod, a quiet chorus of yeses and understood glances. It's the same as it ever is. Routine dressed in velvet and smoke. But inside you, something is different. It isn't loud. It isn't radical. Just a soft knowing. A whisper beneath the noise. You won't be here forever. That thought lands like a pebble in a still pond. You carry it with you through the rest of the morning. Later, as you help Betsy polish the brass on the front door, she pauses, squinting up at the sky. "Looks like sun's trying to come through," she says. You glance up. It is, just barely, and it feels like a promise. Not a grand one, not a sweeping, romantic change. Just a promise that things can shift, that the hours don't last forever, that eventually, even this house, this world you've built brick by brick with your own hands and heart, can become a chapter, not a cage. And with that thought held gently, you walk back inside. You have clients to see. You have stories to play. But you are starting to imagine the next role. Not as Margaret. Not even as Mary. Just as you. And that imagining is enough to carry you. For now, let yourself soften now. You're no longer in that room with the velvet drapes and the soft ticking clock. The fire has gone out. The wine has cooled. The perfume has faded into the curtains and the corners of the floorboards. It's just you now. You, and the echo of footsteps down long corridors, the scent of lavender lingering on your sleeve, the press of memory where names used to be. You made it through another night, another story, another 1,000 tiny performances stitched together like lace, intricate, invisible, and stronger than anyone ever gives it credit for. And now, you can rest. Let the city outside blur into mist. Let the snow melt. Let the street lamps blink out, one by one. There's nothing left to be done. No one else to impress. No one to convince, or correct, or charm. You can breathe. You can exhale. Whatever name you wore tonight, you can let it go now. Whatever mask you held, you can set it down. Because you are still here, still whole, and still yours. So close your eyes, love. The story is finished. You survived. You always do. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow will come gently, just like it always does.